Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever time you're listening to this. This is episode 2 of the Guiding Light podcast, podcast built specifically for small business owners to handle all the challenges you have in your day-to-day activities. Today, we have a couple of guests on the show. We have Thomas Chandler. He's with Modern Woodman. Fraternal Financial. He is a financial advisor. And then we also have Justin Brock. Justin is with Brock and Thomas Insurance here in Tupelo. Of course, all of us are from Tupelo. But I wanted to get everybody together today to talk about the challenges that small business owners have in providing benefits to their employees. Okay, we all know that it creates loyalty with the employee. A lot of times small business owners, they have this huge thing with, I can't seem to find any good employees and I can't seem to do this. And a lot of times it has to do with the people that they're working for makes them bad employees. Would you not agree? That they don't have the good things in place to make it a good work environment?
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Okay. All righty. Now, I was doing a little bit of research on this. Okay. And is it true that the law requires that employers provide benefits to their employees?
I believe, for certain benefits, it's, as far as health and ancillary benefits, I believe it's only for, well, at least for health, it's only for employers who have over 50 employees.
50 employees. Okay.
Yes.
And is it based on an hourly, like if they're putting in 40 hours a week, or does it?
Right. So it would be based off of, the way I understand that law would be based off of 50 employees, full-time employees. So 40 hours a week, or salary employees and that sort of thing. So. Got
it. Okay. Now also I found that roughly 30% of an employee's salary is considered benefits.
It can be, yes. I mean, like,
on average.
On average, yeah. Like if you go all the way across the spectrum, yes.
Okay.
We see in this area, in this area, you see a lot of your smaller employers struggling to, provide that level of benefits because of how expensive some of it can be.
Okay.
So,
yeah. And we're gonna talk about that here in just a minute. So, Thomas, what are the types of benefits that you see employers wanting to provide to their employees?
Well, really, there's a broad range. I mean, definitely, I think for most employers, it starts with health insurance coverage. That's what a lot of your employees are looking for. A lot of times they'll leave one job to go to another job because they offer health insurance. But then when we get into the financial services world, there's really a broad range of investment options. And I don't know how detailed you want to get into that, but we can go from very simple, very hands-off to very involved. And as you get more involved with more complex plans, you have more cost associated with that. So just like Justin was saying, a lot of times employers feel like that they're not financially able to offer a lot of these plans. But definitely you start with health insurance, maybe then move to life insurance. And then as the company grows, as you're a little more financially stable, you start looking at providing retirement plan options.
Right. In fact, I saw a statistic that employers are actually covering roughly, I mean, granted on average, 88% of healthcare premiums that they're providing on benefits, that they're providing, that 88%, and then the rest of it is up to the employee.
Yeah, a lot of employees don't realize that too.
Exactly. They're like, oh, I only make this amount per year. Well, that's what you're bringing home. You also have to factor in your health care and your.
We get a lot of people that'll call us, when they're they're thinking about going self-employed, or they're thinking about moving jobs somewhere that doesn't cover health insurance, and they'll get a quote. And sometimes, especially your older, people say in that 50 plus range, they'll not realize how much their employer was covering on that. So,
exactly. Well, now a few years ago, and I don't remember exactly when this was, but it was all over the news about how employers were asking employees to cover more of their benefits. And that was, and I know that was in light of a lot of the healthcare issues, and a lot of people had questions about Obamacare.
Right.
Is that still the case?
Yeah, I think there've been several different things. What's happening is they've started raising deductibles over time. It really happened initially right when Obamacare got implemented. You started seeing employers, raise their deductibles. Maybe even raise it. A lot of times they don't like to raise what the employee has to pay on it, because the employee normally is more upset about that than the deductible, until they have something big come up and they have to pay that deductible. But yeah, they did several different ways they were having, and really for them, it made sense. They had to do what they had to do to keep everything in the same budget, without losing a whole bunch of money from one year to the next. But it's been a continuous thing. You've even seen, I see them still doing it, or they'll change to different carriers, and then that carrier might have a more limited network that they're able to go to. Just several different ways that they're cutting cost on that end, I'm sure.
Got it. Okay. All righty. Are you seeing any of those similar changes on the financial side, Thomas, as far as 401ks and things like that? Has there been anything recently that have kind of rocked the boat in that front?
No, there's not really anything right now. The Department of Labor was looking at changing some of the rules as far as investments and financial advisors go. But when you're talking about employer-sponsored plans, those rules have stayed pretty much the same. Really, the only thing that changes every once in a while are contribution limits, as far as how much you can deduct from your taxes, that sort of thing. But for the most part, the retirement world has been unaffected. Now, I would say that with Obamacare and some of the changes with health insurance and financial packages of employees, that we have seen a lower number of people actively participating in retirement plans.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel like, if maybe their portion of the premiums have gone up, they feel like they have less that they can contribute to a 401k or some other employer-sponsored plan. And so I would say that involvement in those plans has decreased somewhat. But the economy booming like it has in recent years, I think it's encouraged people to get back into that market and get back into that part of their financial plan. So very important step there.
Got it. Okay. All right. Now, it seems like the medical side, Justin, is always in the news, especially here recently.
Yeah.
Do you see any changes coming? And I mean, I know you can't predict the future. You don't have like that magic crystal ball or anything like that.
I do. I don't let anybody know about it though. So.
There you go. But do you see the changes in the medical coverage of what's out there and employers stepping up or requiring employees to step up even more? Do you see even more changes coming on that front?
It's very difficult to say. One of the things that happened recently was, I guess it was, it's been several months now, but they signed some sort of executive action. President Trump did, along with some of the other people that were advising him on it, to allow associations to form across state lines where, like, say, so just use a random example, like say AARP or Farm Bureau, or members of these types of organizations can now, not that it's happening yet, form these large groups, even if they're not a part of a group.
Mm-hmm.
So like say you're working for an employer and the employer is making you pay too much for health insurance, or maybe they don't offer it at all, or maybe you're self-employed. Well, if you're a member of Farm Bureau or you're a member of AARP, technically Farm Bureau or AARP could have these large national groups. And so if you have this huge group of people, that's going to drive the cost down, because you're, the law of large numbers. The more people you have on one plan, the lower each person costs to insure. What we see a lot right now is in these group plans, like if you get a group of 50, or less, it doesn't really drive the cost down that much, because, you got people with groups of 20 paying the total cost is the same even if they were paying individual premiums. So, a lot of times the employers say, what's the benefit? I should just pay my employee a little bit more and just let them get an individual plan, which, in some cases makes sense, because if you have a group of 500 or 1,000, that's,
Mm-hmm.
now, but if they could eventually get to the point where you had, 100,000 groups, like companies like AT&T are allowed to do or able to do, that can really drive some costs down. And so I think that's the biggest thing on the horizon. The other thing would be if we volleyed back to the left and you saw more of a like Medicare for all push, but I don't really see that happening, anytime soon. But we never know. It is a hot button issue, because you're talking about people's well-being. So that's why it's on the news all the time.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So getting on to retirement plans, what are some of the options that employers have to be able to provide these types of retirement plans for their employees?
So it really just depends on the level of involvement that the employer wants to have, the level of cost, what they're willing to contribute from the business. So I'm going to go kind of from the most simple, easy to administer, to the most complex. So the easiest thing that an employer can do, the one that has the least amount of paperwork for them and the least amount of involvement for them, is to just bring in a financial advisor, allow that person to meet with employees to set up IRAs, individual retirement arrangements, either traditional Roth IRAs, just depending on the situation. All the paperwork is then handled by the employee and the financial advisor. The employer has actually no part in it. Now, you would say, well, why would they do that? Well, it's just showing them that they have an opportunity, letting an employee know that, hey, this is out there and available. But there really are no ties to the employer or to the job in that case. So the next step would be to look at doing either a simple or a SEP IRA. So a simple IRA is going to be more for your small businesses, which is what we're talking about, 100 employees or less. You've got a limit of what employees can contribute of $12,500 a year. And then the employer, they have to lock in, do they either want to contribute 2% of the employee's salary, or do they want to do a matching contribution up to 3%? I personally like doing the match because that encourages the employee to also contribute to the plan, and it gives them some ownership, and it kind of gets them a little more vested in the interest of the employer. So they can set that up. Then there's a SEP, a simplified employee pension. A SEP is really good because it allows you to get a greater contribution limit. This is really good for self-employed individuals and still those small business owners. But you can actually contribute up to $54,000, or if you're 25% of your salary is lower than that, that's your contribution limit. So those are your two options: 25% of your employee's income or $54,000. So really the break-even point, let's say that you're a self-employed person or you have just a handful of employees, the break-even point is $50,000 of compensation, because 25% of that would be that $12,500. So you could just do a simple IRA instead of going through the trouble of doing a SEP. But if you or somebody that works for you makes more than $50,000, then a SEP IRA is way to go because you can contribute more. Now, both of those, what makes them so easy to administer is that they act just like traditional and Roth IRAs. There are no filing requirements with the IRS. There are those rules about contributions for employers, but they're very easy to administer. There's not a lot of costs associated with them. Now, as you get more complex, you get into more profit for a company. Maybe it's still a small business, but they're doing extremely well. Then you can start talking about profit sharing. You can set up a 401k. You can even set up a defined benefit plan, which is basically a pension. The problem with those is that you get a lot more paperwork. You get a lot more administrative costs. There are a lot more rules from the IRS that go along with that you have to meet minimum funding. You have to have a certain percentage of your employees that are contributing or actively involved in the plan. And so it gets a lot more complex once you start looking at that. But for your average small business owner, bringing in a financial advisor to do IRAs, simple SEPs, those sorts of things are really the best options.
Okay. All right. Now, the first one you were talking about where, they bring a financial advisor in, and it's between the financial advisor and the employee. Is that one that they can take with them? Because a lot of times whenever somebody's changing jobs, that's one of the biggest concerns they have.
So the great thing about all the plans that I mentioned is that they are able to be moved. The only one that has a rule with it is the simple IRA. The account has to be open for 2 years before you can move it to a regular IRA. So really, that's the only thing that holds any of this up. So it's really good if you get any of these in place and get them in motion, and your employee does decide to change jobs, they're all very easily transferable. You can do rollovers if it's a 401k, just whatever the case may be. But yeah, you can always take the money with you when you go. Now, there are some rules that I think we'll talk about here in a little bit where employers can make it a little more difficult with vesting. So if you work for our company for 5 years, then the employer contributions are 100% yours. But if you leave before then maybe only 20% or 40% or 60% of what we as the employer have put in are able to be taken with you. And so that encourages people to stick around a little bit longer.
Got it. Okay. All righty. So on healthcare, of course, once an employee leaves, it goes over into COBRA. Is that correct? Is that still?
Yeah, well, you get a COBRA offer. So the COBRA is a law that allows that, it requires that plan to offer you an 18-month extension of your current benefits. However, sometimes if your plan's being contributed to by your employer, that COBRA premium can be kind of high.
Exactly. That's where that extra 88% that you're not used to paying comes into play.
Yeah, they'll see that COBRA offer, and they'll, a lot of times that's when they'll come looking for, individual plans to see what else is available. Because normally, the individual plan is somewhere in between what they were paying and the COBRA offer. So,
Got it. Got it.
I don't see a lot of people taking the COBRA anymore unless there's just right now there not a lot of them taking it because they'll either do Obamacare or will do some sort of short-term major medical for them to get them through, something like that.
Got it. Okay. All righty. So here's a question that I have for both of you. Okay. As a business owner, of course, I have 50 employees. They're working full time. I pay my employees well. And I think, Justin, you kind of mentioned this just a little bit about how business owners can find that extra 88% where they cover the benefits. I know, Justin, you're saying that they're paying more to the employees and just letting the employees get the benefits. Is that correct? That's one way that
a lot of times,
that they're doing it. Okay. Well, Thomas, are there some investment or some type of way that businesses can, and I don't want to say juggle money, that's not a good thing to say, but is there a way that they can get their cash flow to where everything's moving the way it's supposed to be moving to help pay for
Well, I think the biggest thing when you're talking about investments and offering employee benefits are the tax deductions. So you definitely, depending on the type of plan that you set up, the employer contributions are tax deductible. And so that allows you to have a little bit more wiggle room at the end to maybe help with your health insurance coverage or whatever. So as far as what I do and how I relate to business owners, definitely taking full advantage of those tax deductions is a very important part of the process.
Okay. So tax deductions. So that's on a lot of your 401ks and things like that. Now, Justin, and I did want to have a CPA on here. The two that I asked already had something going on. With it being the end of January, I imagine they had some things going today. So they were not able to attend. But are there any tax benefits for small business owners to provide health benefits to their employees?
For them, their contribution to it, of course, would be tax deductible. For the individual, obviously, they need health insurance to avoid the individual mandate that gives them the penalty. So Yeah, I mean, they are able to deduct their portion of the premium. So it's very similar to the tax deductible employer IRA contribution type of setup. They are able to deduct that. But that big thing right now that really has changed recently is the individual mandate, where the employee is having to pay a penalty if they don't have creditable coverage. Of course, that does end at December. That ends for 2018. So people from last year are still seeing that, and people this year will still see it when they're paying their taxes for 2018. But that individual mandate will be gone for tax year 2019.
Got it. Okay, so that did go away.
They did. Yeah, for most people, I don't. The governments can have their own concerns about it, but for the individual person, the mandate wasn't really, in their eyes, helping any of them, the employer or the employee.
Yeah, that's true. I'm not big into negative reinforcement either. So,
No.
Okay. So, let me see. I've heard the term golden handcuffs, and I have no idea what it means. So, Thomas, can you share a little bit about what the term golden handcuffs means?
Yeah, so golden handcuffs, that just refers to an employer making a benefit package desirable for those key employees to stay. So you get an employee that's top notch, doing a great job, is very profitable for your company. You don't want to lose that person because other companies will definitely come after them if they're doing a good job. And so you try to lock them into a job to receive those benefits. And I've already mentioned vesting. So vesting is, after a certain amount of time period, you're able to take a percentage or hopefully the full percentage of whatever the employer has done in a retirement plan with you. There are some other options that as a company grows and becomes more profitable, you might look at doing employee stock options where the employer actually owns a percentage of the company. And so that can be a very good way to keep people around. There's also a SERP, S-E-R-P, a supplemental executive retirement plan. These SERP plans are going to go above and beyond the other retirement plan options that I mentioned earlier. And they really are for those key employees, those people that are invaluable to the business. And then there are some other executive bonus options where you can structure your bonuses in a way that makes somebody want to stick around a little bit longer. And so the idea is that you handcuff them to the job, but they're golden handcuffs because they benefit the employee as well as the employer.
Got it. Okay. All righty. And for our audience, of course, our small business owners, Justin, what's a little tidbit of advice that you would give to small business owners that are looking at either providing benefits to their employees or improving benefits to their employees and making sure they're happy with their benefit package?
I would, because what I see around here is there's a lot of smaller employers. You see a lot of, 5, 10, 15 employee type employers. And that's probably what I run into the most. I would tell them to, explore, maybe unorthodox options that are out there for health coverage. Always, shop these benefits around, different types. There's a lot of Aflac guys out there. There's nothing against Aflac, but there's a lot of these types of people, and don't take the first person that, comes in to do that. Make sure you're getting an actual valuable, group, not just the cheapest person to come along. And then I would also, kind of survey your employees and find out, would they rather have a pay raise or would they rather have benefits, because depending on the size, organization that you're looking at, it might, when I see them, a lot of these types of, companies and the employees are bringing in, maybe the benefit package doesn't mean as much to them. It should mean more to them, but it doesn't, in the long run. And so I think like that first option that Thomas was talking about, bringing in an advisor to meet with each individual employee, maybe they find out that, they can get I'm just speaking in generalities, but like that, $250, $300 a month pay increase, they can take that and invest it on their own or use it however they want to, that way they have a little bit more freedom with it. the studies I do know on the retirement side show that when the employer, as a society, we're better off when the employer does have contribution plans, because it kind of not forces, but get people tend to do more in long-term investing when they have an employer provided contribution plan.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably is better for society, but as an employer, you got to know what is better for your employees, what's going to keep them around longer. And
Right.
I think each size group is different.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm running Bancorp South, there's guys up there that are going to want some, big benefit packages, a different type of business than if you're running, Justin's Country Kitchen and you got 15, staff members. They might rather just have the $200 increase and say, never mind the benefit package. It just, just never
Right.
know. So I'd say survey your, don't think that it's a one size fits all type of thing. Survey your employees, kind of figure out what they want. And, maybe if there's one or two that are more leaning towards benefit packages, bring in somebody to look at it on the individual basis. There are individual options that don't have to be tied to cafeteria plans and big group type of settings. And sometimes that's more beneficial. So it just depends on who you're talking to, really. It's such a broad thing. And I think Thomas has seen that too. Like, different businesses are they're all horses of different colors.
Right. Okay. All right. Thomas, your turn. What little tidbit of advice would you give to small business owners considering?
I would say just be intentional. I mean, and that's with individual family planning, business owners, anybody, especially on the investment side of things, that the number one way that you can be successful financially, you can retain key employees, is just be intentional. Take the bull by the horns. Don't think that it's going to happen naturally. There's always going to be somebody out there that's offering 50 cents more an hour. You have to bring value to your employees. You have to be able to invest in them as people, as employees, financially, whatever it might be. You have to invest in them for them to turn around and be loyal to you and say, no, I don't want 50 cents more an hour, because not only do I work for a great boss, but I also have a great benefit package, health insurance, retirement, whatever it might be. And I don't want to leave this culture. And, we live in a very fickle society. And like Justin was saying, a lot of people, they price shop when you're talking about insurance, especially. It's about who can cut me the best deal. But if you can deliver quality service and you can do whatever it is that you do, whether it's retirement planning, insurance, whatever, if you can fit that to the person and make a connection and make it mean something to them, then you're going to do a lot better off at having business with those people. And it's going to be the same thing for an employer. You make your business valuable to them, and they're going to stick with you for the long haul.
Got it. Well, thank you both. Well, Justin, tell us how to get in touch with you.
Well, anybody that needs any information, of course, we're in Spanish Village at 144 South Thomas Street. You can stop by anytime. My phone number directly is 662-321-0996, 662-321-0996. And I would, love to help anybody. You can also email me at justin@msgap.net. That's MS like Michael Scott. I always get people. That's my phonetics, Michael Scott, msgap.net. So love to help anybody that needs any help.
You also have a YouTube channel, don't you, Justin?
Yeah, I do a little bit of YouTube, and mostly on Medicare, trying to help people with that. And I have a Facebook page. We have a business page, of course, but then I just have like the Justin Brock page. That seems to be that people, want to talk to a person a lot of times, so I'm there just as a normal person that can hopefully answer your questions. And if I can't answer your questions, I would send you to somebody like Thomas or whoever does home and auto and that kind of stuff. I refer people to whoever, I think can help them the most. So.
Got it. Okay. How about you, Thomas? How can everybody get in touch with you?
So the easiest way is just give me a call, 662-296-0186, 662-296-0186. And then also answer email thomas.chandler, CHANDLER, @MWAREP.org, Modern Woodmen of America, MWAREP.org. That's usually the best way to get me.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys coming on. We are now up on iTunes. I was so tickled to death. The show got approved, so we're up there. So you guys will be up there in a couple of days. You'll be able to hear you on iTunes. So make sure and subscribe on iTunes or YouTube. Look for us, and we're going to be getting into the other channels as we grow a little bit more. But I really do appreciate you guys coming on today. Great information. I hope it has helped people that have tuned in. If you do have a question about something that was covered and you don't want to contact one of these guys directly, do put a comment down in the YouTube section, and I'll make sure that it gets to the right one and we'll get an answer for you. Thanks very much. You guys have a great day.
You too.
Thanks,
you.
Rochelle. Have a good one.